Billionaire pretends to be a beggar to test his family. What he did next shocked everyone. Sometimes the greatest test of love doesn't come with wealth. It comes when the wealth disappears. For more than 40 years, Samuel K. Adami had built everything with his own hands. Born in a small African village, he crossed oceans with nothing but determination, faith, and a promise to himself. If I ever succeed, I will never forget who I am. And he didn't. Samuel became one of the most respected businessmen in the region, quiet, disciplined, generous. He built factories, schools, hospitals. His name opened doors. His wealth provided comfort. But with success came something he never expected: distance. His children lived in luxury homes. His grandchildren knew comfort, not struggle. And his own house, though large and beautiful, felt strangely cold. At 72 years old, Samuel began to ask himself a painful question. If I lost everything tomorrow, would my family still see me as a father? That question refused to leave him. Not after church, not during board meetings, not even late at night when he sat alone in his study, staring at old photographs from a life long gone. One evening, Samuel overheard a conversation that broke his heart. Two of his adult children were arguing quietly in the hallway. "Father is getting old," one said. "We need to think about the will," said another. "At least make sure the properties are divided properly." No one mentioned his health. No one asked how he felt. Only assets, only money. That night, Samuel made a decision that would change everything. He would disappear, not forever. Just long enough to learn the truth. 3 weeks later, the billionaire was gone. No announcements, no press, no family warning. Samuel left his mansion wearing old clothes, his phone switched off, his watch removed. He carried only a small bag and a wooden walking stick. By morning, he looked like just another forgotten old man. His hair was untrimmed. His clothes were dusty, his posture bent with age. No one would recognize him. He traveled back to the city where his family lived, but this time not as a powerful man. This time as a beggar. He stood outside his own son's gated home first. The guard stopped him immediately. "Move away," the guard snapped. "This is private property." Samuel smiled gently. "I just want to see my son." The guard laughed. "People like you don't know anyone here." "People like you." Samuel nodded and stepped aside. Later that day, he approached his daughter's house. She was stepping out dressed in fine clothes, phone pressed to her ear. "Please," Samuel said softly, "I'm hungry." She looked at him, really looked, and frowned. "Why are you here?" she asked sharply. "Go to the church. They feed people there." Then she walked past him, didn't recognize his voice, didn't recognize his eyes. That hurt more than he expected. But Samuel stayed calm. "This is why I'm here," he reminded himself. That evening he stood at the gate of his own mansion, the house he built, the home he filled with love. Lights glowed warmly inside, laughter echoed. But when he knocked, the door opened only slightly. A maid stared at him in shock. "What do you want?" she asked. Samuel swallowed. "I'm lost," he said. "I need help." She hesitated, then shut the door. No help, no question, no mercy. Samuel walked away slowly, his heart heavier than his feet. He slept that night on a bench near a church. Cold, hungry, alone. And for the first time in decades, the billionaire cried. Not because he was poor, but because he felt invisible. As Samuel stared at the night sky, a thought crossed his mind that terrified him. What if the only person in my family who still loves me doesn't even know who I am? To see which family member fails the test, and who unexpectedly passes it in a way no one imagined. Samuel woke before sunrise, his old bones aching from the cold iron bench beneath him. Church bells rang softly in the distance, their familiar sound bringing back memories of a younger man, one who once sat in the same pews with his children by his side, their small hands wrapped around his fingers. Back then, love felt simple. Honest, now he felt like a stranger in his own story. Samuel rose slowly, leaning on his wooden stick, and dusted off his worn coat. Hunger gnawed at him, but something deeper hurt more: disappointment. Still, he pressed on. One more day, he told himself. One more chance. His first stop that morning was his eldest son's office building, a glass tower Samuel himself had helped finance years earlier. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, soft music, perfume in the air. Samuel stepped through the revolving door, instantly drawing eyes. A receptionist frowned. "Sir, you can't be here." "I'm looking for my son," Samuel said gently. "He works here." The woman's lips tightened. "We don't allow begging inside." "Please leave." Samuel tried again. "I only need a moment." Security appeared within seconds. They didn't shout. They didn't insult him. They simply removed him like a problem to be erased. Outside, Samuel stood quietly, watching employees pass him without a glance. Men in suits, women in heels, people who owed their success in part to the man they just ignored. Samuel felt no anger, only sadness. Later that afternoon, he approached his youngest daughter's home. This time, he planned his words carefully. She opened the door partway, annoyance flashing across her face. "Yes," she snapped. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Samuel said softly. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," she sighed dramatically. "You people always have a story," she said. "I work hard for what I have." She handed him a coin, not looking at him, and closed the door. The coin fell to the ground. Samuel stared at it. He didn't pick it up, not because he was proud, but because something inside him finally cracked. "Is this who we've become?" he wondered. As the day faded into evening, Samuel wandered aimlessly. His feet led him somewhere familiar without him realizing it, a small, modest house on a quiet street. His late wife's younger sister lived there, Aunt Grace. Samuel hesitated. She had never asked him for money, never used his name for status. She lived simply. Slowly he knocked. The door opened. Grace froze, her eyes widened. "Samuel," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "It's me." She didn't hesitate. She pulled him inside and wrapped him in a tight embrace. "Oh my goodness," she said, tears forming. "What have they done to you?" She sat him down immediately, brought warm food, fresh water, a blanket. She didn't ask questions first. She cared. As Samuel ate, his hands trembling, Grace watched him closely. "You look thinner," she said. "Older, I needed to know something," Samuel replied quietly. Grace nodded. "I know," she always had. Later that night, Samuel lay on a proper bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time since beginning his test, he felt warmth again, but the truth was now clear. His children, raised with love, had learned something else instead. Comfort. Convenience, distance. Still, Samuel wasn't done, because there was one more door he hadn't knocked on yet, the one that mattered most. As Samuel drifted to sleep, his phone, hidden away in Grace's drawer, vibrated silently. A message from his personal lawyer flashed on the screen. "Sir, your family has already started dividing your assets." Samuel closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the final test would begin. To discover who surprises Samuel, and whose betrayal cuts deeper than poverty ever could. Samuel did not sleep much that night. Not because the bed was uncomfortable, it was soft, warm, safe, but because his heart was heavy with thoughts he had tried to avoid for years. At dawn, he rose quietly, careful not to wake Aunt Grace. He sat on the edge of the bed, holding his wooden walking stick, staring at his trembling hands. These hands had built factories, signed contracts, held newborn children. Now they shook like fragile branches. By mid-morning, Grace insisted he eat before leaving. "You don't need to prove anything more, Samuel," she said gently. "You've seen enough." Samuel smiled sadly. "One last visit," he replied. "For my peace," Grace nodded. She understood that some lessons must be completed, even when they hurt. His destination that day was unexpected. Not another wealthy child, not another closed gate. He walked toward a modest auto repair shop on the edge of town. The sign was old, the paint was peeling. Daniel's Auto and Tire. Daniel was Samuel's youngest son, the one who never liked boardrooms, the one who refused to work in the family empire, the one people quietly called a disappointment. Samuel had rarely visited this place. Now he stood outside it as a beggar. The smell of oil filled the air. A radio played soft gospel music inside. Samuel stepped in. Daniel looked up from under a car. Grease covered his hands, sweat lined his forehead. "Yes, sir," Daniel said kindly. "How can I help you?" Samuel's throat tightened. His own son didn't recognize him. "I'm hungry," Samuel said simply. "And tired." Daniel didn't hesitate. He shut off the engine lift, wiped his hands, and guided Samuel to a chair. "Sit down," Daniel said. "You look like you need rest." He disappeared into a small back room and returned with a sandwich and a bottle of water. "Eat," Daniel said, "then we'll talk." Samuel watched him closely as he ate, no impatience, no suspicion, no judgment. After a few moments, Daniel spoke again. "You remind me of my father," he said casually. Samuel froze. "How so?" he asked. "He was strong," Daniel continued, "but he forgot how to rest. He forgot how to be human sometimes." Samuel swallowed hard. "He taught us to work," Daniel said softly, "but not always how to love." The words cut not with cruelty but truth. Samuel finished the sandwich. "Why do you help people like me?" he asked. Daniel shrugged. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing." "Who?" Samuel asked. "My mother," Daniel replied. "Before she died, she said something I'll never forget." He paused. "She said, when you help the poor, you may be helping angels in disguise." Samuel's eyes filled with tears. Daniel noticed and quickly turned away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to upset you." Samuel stood slowly. "You didn't upset me," he said. "You healed me." Daniel looked confused. Samuel straightened his back, removed his cap, lifted his eyes. "Daniel," he said quietly. "It's me." Silence fell. The radio hummed softly in the background. Daniel stared, then his face changed. Shock, disbelief, pain. "Father," he whispered. Samuel nodded. Daniel dropped to his knees. "I didn't know," he said, voice breaking. "I swear I didn't know." Samuel placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "That's why you passed the test," he said gently. Daniel looked up, tears streaming. "What test?" "The one that matters," Samuel replied. "The one that measures the heart." That evening, Samuel returned to Grace's house. But this time he was not the same man who had left that morning. He had found what he feared was gone: character. Not in wealth, not in comfort, but in humility, yet the hardest part was still ahead. Because tomorrow, Samuel would return home, not as a beggar, but as a father with a decision to make. As Samuel sat quietly that night, he opened his lawyer's message again. Another update had arrived. "Sir, your family meeting is scheduled. They believe you may not return." Samuel closed his eyes. They were about to be very surprised. To witness Samuel's shocking return, and the moment his family realizes what they've truly lost, the sun had barely risen when Samuel stood outside his mansion once again. Only this time he did not knock, he watched. From across the street, he observed the house that once felt like a sanctuary, now buzzing with quiet urgency. Cars arrived early. Voices murmured behind curtains. A family meeting, just as the lawyer had said. Samuel adjusted his worn coat and leaned on his walking stick. He still looked like a beggar, and that was exactly the point. Inside the house, the atmosphere was tense. Samuel's children sat around the long dining table where birthdays were once celebrated and prayers once spoken. Coffee cups sat untouched. Phones buzzed constantly. "We need to be realistic," the eldest son said. "Father hasn't been seen in weeks. We should prepare for the worst," the daughter added, her voice calm but distant. "The lawyers will need clarity." Another son nodded. "The businesses can't wait forever." No one spoke about Samuel's favorite chair. No one mentioned his health. No one asked why he disappeared, only what came next. Outside, Samuel finally walked toward the gate. The guard stepped forward instantly. "Hey, stop." "I've come home," Samuel said gently. The guard scoffed. "You don't belong here." Before Samuel could respond, Daniel's voice cut through the air. "Wait." Daniel had arrived quietly. He stepped forward, eyes fixed on the old man. The guard hesitated. "Sir." "That's my father," Daniel said firmly. The world seemed to pause. The guard's face drained of color. Inside the house, voices rose as Daniel guided Samuel through the door. The family stood, stared. Froze. Samuel removed his cap. Silence followed. The daughter gasped. One son stepped back. Another laughed nervously, unsure if this was a joke. "Father," the eldest son whispered. Samuel looked at them calmly. "Yes," he said. "It's me." The room erupted. Questions flew, voices overlapped. Excuses formed too quickly. "Why didn't you tell us? We were worried. You scared us." Samuel raised a hand. The room fell silent. "I wanted to see you," he said slowly, "when I was no longer useful to you." That sentence landed like thunder. Faces shifted. Eyes dropped. Samuel walked toward the table and placed his walking stick beside the chair that once belonged to him. "For weeks," he continued, "I stood outside your homes, your offices, your gates." No one interrupted. "You saw me," he said, "but you didn't see me." Tears welled in the daughter's eyes. "Father, we didn't recognize you." Samuel nodded. "Exactly." He turned to Daniel. "And yet," Samuel said, his voice softening, "one of you opened his door without knowing who I was." Daniel stood quietly, his eyes lowered. "I am not angry," Samuel said, "but I am awake." The eldest son stood. "Father, please. Let us explain." Samuel looked at him. "Explanation does not replace compassion," he replied. The weight of those words crushed the room. Samuel took a breath. "I built this house to be filled with love," he said. "Not entitlement, not calculation." He paused. "Tomorrow," Samuel announced, "I will make a decision." Panic rippled through the family. "What decision?" someone asked. Samuel looked around the room one last time. "A decision about legacy," he said, "and who truly deserves it." That night, Samuel sat alone in his study. The same room where decades earlier he had written his first business plan by candlelight. The lawyer sat across from him. "Are you certain?" the lawyer asked carefully. Samuel nodded. "More certain than I've ever been." He looked down at the documents on the desk. Not a will, a correction. As Samuel signed the final page, the lawyer hesitated. "Sir," he said quietly, "once this is done, nothing will ever be the same." Samuel set the pen down. "That," he replied, is the point. The decision that shocks the family and teaches a lesson that will outlive wealth itself. The next morning arrived quietly. No announcements, no media, no grand display. Yet inside Samuel Adami's mansion, tension filled the air like a held breath. The family gathered again in the living room, dressed carefully, sitting upright, speaking softly. Smiles were forced. Respect felt rehearsed. Samuel entered slowly, no longer dressed as a beggar. He wore a simple, clean, traditional outfit, not extravagant, not poor, just dignified. The room fell silent. He took his seat at the head of the room, his walking stick resting beside him. For the first time in weeks, everyone looked at him not as wealth, but as a man. Samuel folded his hands. I have lived long enough, he began calmly, to know that money does not reveal character. Loss does. No one spoke. When I disappeared, he continued, I didn't do it to punish you, I did it to understand you. Eyes lowered. I stood at your gates, Samuel said. I asked for food. I asked for kindness. His voice did not shake. But what I received was fear, inconvenience, and distance. The eldest son swallowed hard. Father, we were wrong, Samuel nodded. Yes, but wrong can still be corrected. Hope flickered across their faces. Then Samuel turned to Daniel. Except, he said, one of you reminded me who I raised. Daniel looked up, startled. Daniel, Samuel said gently, you opened your door without knowing who I was. He turned back to the family. That matters, Samuel signaled to the lawyer. The lawyer stood and cleared his throat. Samuel Adami has revised his estate plans, he announced. The room stiffened. Effective immediately, the lawyer continued, ownership of the primary businesses and charitable foundations will be transferred under a new structure. The eldest daughter leaned forward. What structure? Samuel answered himself. A structure built on responsibility, he said, not entitlement. He looked directly at Daniel. Daniel will oversee the foundation that supports the poor, the elderly, and the forgotten, Samuel announced. Because he understands hunger not from experience but from empathy. Gasps filled the room. Daniel shook his head. Father, I didn't help for this. Samuel smiled softly. That is why you deserve it. He turned to the others. You will still be my children, Samuel said. You will still be provided for. Relief swept through them. But, Samuel added, raising a finger, your inheritance will no longer be automatic. Silence returned. You will earn it, he said, through service, through humility, through time spent with people who cannot repay you. Tears fell freely now, not from loss, but from realization. Samuel rose slowly, leaning on his stick. I do not want my name remembered for buildings, he said. I want it remembered for hearts changed. He looked around the room one last time. This test is over, Samuel said. But your lessons have just begun. Months later, life looked different. The family volunteered together at shelters, shared meals with strangers, listened more than they spoke. Daniel's auto shop became a training center for young men with no direction. And Samuel, he walked slowly now, but with peace. One afternoon, he sat on a bench near the church where this journey began. A stranger approached him. Sir, the man said kindly, are you all right? Samuel smiled. I am, he replied, more than I've ever been. He left as a billionaire, returned as a beggar, and rebuilt his family as a father. Because in the end, the greatest inheritance isn't money, it's character.